Good morning. Yay, and welcome. You are at the First Parish Church of Stowe and Acton. We are a welcoming spiritual community. My name is Ingrid Holcomb, and I serve on the lay ministers team, as well as being a small group co-facilitator. You'll hear more about that in a minute. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you are here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews or in the back of the sanctuary. I don't know if you can see it up there on Zoom, but is our welcoming coordinator, Meg, who'll be happy to give you one of those cards to fill out. Our minister, staff, and board are listed on the front of your order of service, and please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. We also have large print hymnals, and we have assisted listening devices. So don't be shy. If you feel that that would help you participate in today's service, please see one of our ushers who are out in we call it the vestibule, but once you're around here, you know that's just the entryway in the front. Nursery care is also available during this service for children in grades K through 5. They usually attend the first part of our service and then leave for their classes. And once a month, we have a children's chapel where children begin their time in the community room. And for youth programming and other information, see the bulletin or ask one of our RE folks, religious education. And Lindsay is here this morning as a point person, but you can ask anybody. After the service, if you're in this building, please join us downstairs for coffee hour. That way, and down one level, there is an elevator on this level to get down. And if you're online, hello, you can stay online and there will be breakout groups for you to chat with folks who are attending remotely. There's lots of information in your order of service, and my screen is just timed out. I'm a lousy typist, bear with. And one of the most important ones, at least for me today as a co-facilitator of SGM, is this one. I don't know if anybody got a chance to glance at the Boston Globe, if you do that, this morning, but on the front page of the ideas section was this headline: "Why is everyone always interrupting?" And the writer of that article goes on to give about 4 or 5 different ways that you can combat that in your personal life, but I got a quicker way. Sign up for SGM, Small Group Ministry. We do not interrupt. We listen, and we hold information about people close. So if you want to make new friends like I have through SGM, or strengthen friendships you already have like I have through SGM, and you don't want to be interrupted, join SGM. Oh, wait, there's breaking news about SGM. We will be growing the program to include our sister church, the Unitarian Church of Marlborough Hudson. And because of that and all the other reasons that the program is growing, we could use some co-facilitators. So if you think you've been in the if you have been in the SGM before and you think you'd like to co-lead, this is a great time to work with an experienced facilitator and make a difference here at FPC that way. FPC, First Parish Church. So our minister, the Reverend Dr. Cindy Landrum, is currently on sabbatical. Today we are delighted to have the Reverend Laura Randall speaking to us, and Laura's pronouns are she, her, hers. As the director for Congregation Relations at UUSC, Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, I'm trying to do all the acronyms for those of us who are challenged. UUSC, Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The Reverend Laura facilitates partnerships to strengthen the impact of that committee and the social justice reach of UU communities. Prior to joining UUSC, Laura's ministry included serving as the Legacy Campaign Director for the Unitarian Universalist Association and Hospice Chaplaincy. She works with many UUSC partners, such as the Pink Haven Coalition, which with the support of UUSC members is ensuring that our trans, two-spirit, and gender-expansive kin can survive and thrive. And 12 o'clock?
Noon, yep.
At 12 o'clock noon, for those in the building and others who might want to come, Laura will be leading a Q&A about Pink. So if you're interested, check your order of service and also join us in the community room. Thank you very much. Speaking with this new retainer has me kerfuffled.
I'm so sorry. It's okay. It's part of history now. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to be with you. Our opening words are from the Reverend Megan Visser. We enter this sanctuary for kindness and comfort. May rough-worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this sanctuary of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive know justice. We enter this sanctuary of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this sanctuary of courage and friendship. May we proceed hand in hand towards freedom. We will now light our chalice. Susan will light. These words are by the Reverend Michael Tino. The flaming chalice was first used by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. As we light this chalice, we invoke the love that called people to put their lives at risk to save others. May we too be vessels of life-saving welcome. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit as we sing hymn number 108 in the gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Hymn number 108.
That is a new creation. Now please join in our covenant and affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek for truth and love, and to help one another. We would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to those indigenous peoples who lost their lives in the colonization of this land, and recognize that these indigenous tribes are still facing They are still facing violations of sovereignty, territory, and water. We recognize this is just a first step in moving toward right relationship with Native peoples and the healing of the earth.
Any young folk would like to come up close? Thanks. Any young folk would like to come up closer to read this story together, or if you're young at heart and would like a better look at the pictures, because it's kind of a tiny book. So our story this morning is called Together, and it's by Mona Damluji, and it's illustrated by Inosanto Nagara. And might be hard to see, but I'm going to show you the pictures as I read it. And on each page, there's an animal. So the same animal on each page, but it looks a little different. So see if you can find which animal it is. One star shines as a distant light. And when the stars shine together, they make a galaxy. One bee wanders through my garden. And when bees work together, they are a colony. One bird calls into the wind. And when the birds call together, they make a cacophony. One tree grows towards the sun. And when the trees grow together, they make a canopy. One voice sings a tender song. And when voices sing together, they make harmony. One instrument plays an unforgettable beat. And when instruments play together, they are a symphony. One mountain rises to a mighty peak. And when the mountains rise together, they are majesty. One wave is a surfer's dream. And when the waves move together, they are an endless sea. One of us can make a home. And when we come together, we are family. One of us can love with all our heart. And when we love together, we build community. One of us can speak up for justice. And when we speak up together, we create a world of possibility. Okay, that's the story. Did y'all see the animal that was on each page? Yeah, what was it?
It was a frog.
It was a frog. There is a frog on every single page of this book. Sometimes it's in the corner, sometimes it's being held as a stuffed animal, sometimes it's in the pattern on someone's clothes. It's very cool. Thank you so much for listening to this story.
Good morning again. Again, I'm Ingrid Holcomb, and I'm here as a lay minister this time for Joys and Sorrows. And maybe I'll ask Jameson as he's walking by to light 2 candles for me before I pick up that duty, and I'll hand you the mic afterwards. Thank you. I think it's quiet online too. So it's our tradition to light 2 final candles, one for the cost of war. And the other for those joys and sorrows in our hearts that are unspoken but remain held by us as a beloved community.
As we are holding the joys and remembrances and concern and worry for our loved ones in Southern California, I ask that we stay in a spirit of prayer and reflection. This prayer is called A Prayer for When Everything Crumbles to Dust by Reverend A.J. Van Tyne. Great mystery which grounds and surrounds us, small spark of life and possibility that lives within us even when all else is crumbling to dust. Be with us in our confusion and fear and even despair. Lead us to navigate them as slowly as possible, resisting the impulse to soothe, to blame, to seek things that feel better than the hurt and the heaviness, but which ultimately leave us isolated or complacent or too suspicious of each other. Let us not flee from our grief, but allow our hearts to be broken open again and again, grieving for all that has already been lost and all that is threatened now. Spirit of life and love and regeneration, help us to feel the wisdom in our bodies. Even with so much going so wrong, our hearts beat with gratitude for blessings, for beauty and joy stubbornly breaking through, for the compassionate companionship of community, which welcomes all that we bring with us in these times and doesn't ask us to be smaller than we really are, for solidarity and mutual aid, for the trees and the wind and the stars, their cosmic witness soothing our animal souls, reminding us of the deep impermanence and deep interconnectedness of all things. Spirit of transformation, may our hearts be broken open and stretch out to join the hearts of others who yearn for a freer world. Each heart a building block of a better society. Each life lived for hope and resistance, a prayer for a nobler world. Amen, and blessed be. Let us rise once more in body or in spirit as we sing hymn number 170. We are a gentle, angry people. It's 170 in the gray hymnal. Please be seated. And thanks for singing that hymn. It's one of my favorites. It was sung the first time I ever went to a Unitarian Universalist church. That's when I knew I was home. Our reading this morning is a poem by the Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto called In Case of Apocalypses. In case of apocalypses, the box said in old-fashioned type, break glass immediately. Apocalypse has never been part of my theology, but the way things are going, I just might reconsider. So I leaned even closer and pulled a note from the top of the box. It said, hello, friend. We don't know when you are reading this, but we hope the ends haven't yet justified the means. Every time it has happened so far, we have found that the end of the world needed fewer tinned beans and more fuzzy blankets, more cozy novels and fewer weapons of war, more protest songs, more baking opas, more stuffies and hugs, more connections and mutual aid, and holding each other's capes while we change. Just as many doctors and shopkeepers and nurses and teachers, and to the eternal sadness of our pacifist hearts, people to charge the tanks driven by protectors. But we digress. The point is, the end of the world does have evil, but defeating it looks a lot less like leaping tall buildings in a single bound, and a lot more like breaking structures that never should have been built that shape to begin with. So we put together this box for the next time the world ends. Since we didn't want you to wait too long to break the glass, we wanted to tell everyone what's in it, and that it refills when it needs to. There is already enough trouble and selfishness and hopelessness and loneliness in the world. The next time the world ends, we thought you might need more joy, more determination, more recognition of each other's worthiness, and definitely a good amount of small animal snuggles. And a whole heap of justice, of course, plenty of imagination. We've added a few surprises, but only good ones. Nobody wants a jump scare when the world is already ending. And way down at the bottom, when you think you've gotten it all, you'll find some sacred rage, because you'll need that too when you're remaking the world. There ends the reading.
Each month, FPC shares its weekly offering with an organization that is selected by our congregation. This month, we share our weekly offering with our Supporting Asylum Seekers Task Force, one of our social justice task forces. Please check your order of service for more information about this task force.
We give thanks for the gifts and the givers, for the blessings of sunlight, fresh air, warm community, and beautiful music. We know that we will use these gifts wisely to help welcome our asylum-seeking neighbors. So glad to be with you this morning, friends. I'm grateful for the invitation to come into this community in a time when we need community so very much. Many of us are in the midst of deep grief after November's election, yeah? While the initial shock and deep despair of the immediate aftermath may have dissipated somewhat for many of us, we are still grieving. And this grief may be ramping up again as the distraction of the holidays recede and the inauguration is upon us. Grief is loud and messy and painful, and it must be felt if we're going to be able to transform this grief into something that supports life. Grief, ignored and buried within us, will fester and come out in destructive ways in the future. So I want to encourage us not to avoid or rush past this grief. There's no right or wrong way to do this, and it will look different for everyone. Reach towards the coping mechanisms that foster grounding and connection. And let us give each other and ourselves grace right now. It's okay not to be okay. One of the grounding practices I frequently reach for when despair wraps its fist around my heart is to look to the justice movements of the past and how justice makers around the world carry that legacy forward today. Working for the UU Service Committee, better known as UUSC, I get to witness the incredible tapestry of connections and imagination that make them possible. UUSC is an international human rights organization grounded in Unitarian Universalism that has been a powerful force for justice since its founding in 1940 in response to the rise of Nazism. UUSC's work is based on a partnership model that centers the experience and leadership of the people who are most impacted by injustice. This partnership includes support of some of the scrappiest, most creative and courageous groups of people you can imagine, who are often working for justice in very dangerous conditions. In the wake of the US presidential election, many of our international partners reached out to us, offering concern, solidarity, and perspective. So many of our partners work for justice in the context of authoritarian regimes and state violence. They know what it takes to engage in effective resistance and to prioritize adaptability, resilience, and commitment to deeply held values above all. They know how to survive and even thrive through community care, mutuality, and persistent hope. One of our partners, Juan Jose in Honduras, wrote to us on November 6th that the resistance of centuries makes us strong. We have examples so close to us to draw on for perspective. Indigenous communities in resistance for 500 years in Guatemala, helping bring about a previously unexpected moment of real democracy. The women of FEM literally cultivating life and consciousness under an authoritarian regime. The entirety of the Honduran organizing in the Agwan and beyond that keeps moving, keeps focus on justice and care for the earth, even as we grieve and rage at what is being taken from them, from us, and from the land. Let us keep these examples before us as we look for solutions and global solidarity and mutual care instead of the American exceptionalism and individualism that has plagued our culture for so long. The founding of UUSC to resist fascism seems particularly apt right now, and it seems like a good time to retell the story of our most beloved symbol as Unitarian Universalists, the chalice. It is the chalice that itself that most strongly calls us to the work of resisting oppressive systems such as racism, sexism, and fascism, promoting human rights for all people and caring for the precious earth we share. Our chalice, as sacred as it is to us, wasn't always the symbol of the Unitarian and Universalist faiths. In 1940, the Reverend Dr. Charles Rind Joy was sent by the newly created Unitarian Service Committee to Lisbon, Portugal, which is one of the few ports in Europe open at the time and therefore saw many refugees that were fleeing the Nazi regime. Many of these refugees had to flee without the identification papers that were required to cross borders. So Joy decided to start making identification papers issued by the USC itself. This was uncharted water, but instead of focusing on the risks that he and the organization might be taking by doing this, Joy focused on saving the lives of those fleeing fascism. He decided that these papers needed a seal to look as official as other travel papers, and so he asked Hans Dusch, an Austrian refugee and artist working in Lisbon, to create one. And the result was the basis of the flaming chalice as we know it now. And while all this was happening, Waitstill and Martha Sharp were also sent to Europe by the USC, and they not only falsified documents to get people out, but also were laundering money when necessary. UUSC's founders lived by the principle that good people disobey bad laws. Since its inception, the thing that binds all of us as Unitarian Universalists together, the chalice, was founded on our commitment to human rights and fighting fascism. And this commitment is calling us to the same goal today, as we partner with grassroots organizations around the world and here in the United States to resist oppressive systems and advance human rights for all people. We use the word partner and partnership a great deal at UUSC because our grassroots partners, small groups of leaders and visionaries who are directly impacted by oppression, are at the center of our work. Because we believe that the communities bearing the brunt of climate-forced displacement, criminalization, and humanitarian crisis are also the communities that hold the solutions. This belief is at the core of everything we do at UUSC. This belief in the inherent worth and power of every person. This is why we engage in partnerships, not transactions. 50 years ago, the Guest at Your Table program was started to bring the stories of our global partners into congregations, to invite our partners through their stories into our worship services and around our kitchen tables as if we were all sharing a meal together. One of our featured guests this year are the organizers of the Pink Haven Coalition, a network of activists and organizations working to help trans and gender-expansive people who are fleeing unsafe states. Because of safety concerns, we cannot name an individual from Pink Haven as our guest, but I know our tables are big enough to welcome the whole crew. Perhaps you saw the profile on Pink Haven in UU World magazine. Or perhaps you watched the presentation of the UUA's Volunteer Service Award to the Pink Haven Coalition at General Assembly this past June. Given the implications of the recent U.S. election results, it seems appropriate to focus on the Pink Haven Coalition and the work of solidarity we are being called to now. Two-spirit, trans, and gender-expansive people have been targets of the right for decades, but the escalation in recent years is profound. 38 states currently have anti-transgender legislation on their books, with the number of new bills growing by the day. Today, the ACLU is tracking 574 anti-LGBTQI bills that are in process in various state legislatures, most of them anti-trans laws. Just a few days into the new legislative year, over 125 anti-trans and anti-queer bills have already been filed across the country, signaling that this issue will continue to dominate legislative agendas both at the state and federal levels. And just so we can have some perspective, in 2015, the number of bills was 8, getting close to 600 now. These bills are trying to legislate trans and queer people out of existence. This has been central to the Republican platform for a decade. Michael Knowles said in his speech at the 2023 Conservative Political Action Conference that transgender people must be eradicated from public life. Trump and other Republican candidates spent $215 million just this election cycle on anti-trans ads. Because of these laws and the hostile environment, trans people in the United States now meet the definition of internally displaced people, or IDPs, by the United Nations. Additionally, these laws and the misinformation and hateful rhetoric surrounding them embolden physical violence against trans people, in addition to the legislative, medical, and economic violence already heaped upon them. The city of Odessa, Texas, recently instituted a $10,000 bounty for any trans person who uses a restroom, public or private, that aligns with their gender identity. Last month, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed into law a transgender bathroom ban that extends beyond state-owned buildings and into private institutions as well. These laws are practically guaranteed to encourage vigilante violence. Hundreds of thousands of trans people and their families have already fled their homes to safer states, with more than 1 million considering doing so, according to a recent Data for Progress survey. So what brought us to this place where trans folks are being scapegoated by the right and states are actively trying to legislate them out of existence? A myriad of factors, to be sure, but one of the most prominent is the rise of fascism and authoritarianism in the United States. The Reverend Jim Vody addressed this phenomenon in his 2023 Skinner House sermon, Resisting Tyranny. He wrote, "Under fascism, you have an autocrat who believes in the cultural superiority and political supremacy of the country he leads. And he believes in the use of his concentrated power and unlimited violence to uphold the country's supremacy and its purity against perceived internal and external threats." In 1930s Germany, the made-up threat of choice was the Jewish community, and right now in our own country, trans folk are the made-up threat of choice. It is no accident that the percentage of Jews in Germany in 1933 and the percentage of trans-identified adults in the US today is nearly identical. The strategy of demonizing a tiny, often misunderstood minority and using religion to do so is another tactic right out of the authoritarian playbook. Tyrants always punch down for political gain. The non-binary poet and activist Alok recently wrote that the best way to eliminate a group is to demonize them, such that their disappearance is seen as an act of justice and not discrimination. Let's take a breath. This is really heavy stuff. So now that the federal government is primed to be weaponized against our trans and gender expansive beloveds, we need to support the Pink Haven Coalition more than ever. We are working with them to build welcoming villages in safer states with sanctuary protections, which includes most New England states. We'll get to New Hampshire another time. We're also raising money for immediate emergency grants to families and individuals who need to flee before their rights and safety become even more restricted in the coming weeks and months. As one of the people who helps monitor Pink Haven's email box, we have been flooded with requests for assistance and guidance since November 6th. We know that lives are on the line. And just as our religious ancestors have done, I know Unitarian Universalists are going to continue to come together to meet this moment. Writer and historian Rebecca Solnit wrote following the election that they want you to feel powerless and to surrender and to let them trample everything, and you're not going to let them. You're not giving up, and neither am I. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean we cannot save anything, and everything we can save is worth saving. Remember what you love. Remember what loves you. And remember in this tide of hate what love is. You can be heartbroken or furious or both at once. You can scream in your car or on a cliff. You can also get up tomorrow and water the flower pots and call someone who's upset and check your equipment for going forward. A lot of us are going to come under direct attack, and a lot of us are going to resist by building solidarity and sanctuary. Gather up your resources, the metaphysical ones that are the heart and soul and care, as well as the practical ones. People kept the faith in the dictatorships of South America in the 1970s and 80s, and in the East Bloc countries, and the USSR. Women are protesting right now in Iran, and people there are writing poetry. There's no alternative to persevering, and that does not require you to feel good. You can keep walking whether it's sunny or it's raining. Take care of yourself. And remember that taking care of something else is an important part of taking care of yourself, because you are woven with the 10 trillion things in a single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but is still being woven and mended and washed. My colleague in New Orleans, the Reverend Sarah Green, told a story about her children who'd been raised in Tennessee and were about to go camping in a state park in Louisiana for the first time. And they had a lot of questions, especially about alligators. What do they eat? Are they fast? What do you do if one is chasing you? She told them that alligators eat what they can catch. Yes, they are fast, and then she offered several options in case it happened that an alligator started to chase them. Running in a zigzag pattern or wrapping the alligator sharply on the snout with a stick. You don't have to lay down and get eaten, she told them. You have options. Beloved ancestor Bell Hooks wrote, "One of the most vital ways we sustain ourselves is by building communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone." Our Unitarian Universalist communities, this congregation, the Pink Haven Coalition, every mutual aid and global solidarity effort, all of our libraries, all communities of resistance, places where we know we are not alone. This is where we are invited to show up and live through together. As Reverend Green reminds us, we don't have to lie down and get eaten. We have options. Our justice-loving ancestors are showing us the way. Our global partners in the movement for human rights and climate justice are showing us the way. Our Unitarian Universalist values are showing us the way. Stay with us, friends. Find your people and get to work. Together we will mourn and resist, disrupt and heal, weep, sing, and imagine. Together we will persevere. I want to thank you, First Parish, for your commitment to justice. If you want to get involved with Pink Haven on a deeper level, please reach out to me, visit pinkhaven.org, and please, if you can, come to the Q&A session today at noon. May the faith of our ancestors and the example of our global partners in the justice movement continue to be a guiding force for us today and in the years to come. Blessed be, and amen. Let us now rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn. It's number 1020 in the teal hymnal this time, 1020, Wo Ya Ya. Friends, our service this morning is at an end, and our work has just begun. The work of holding one another and this community in love, the work of radical inclusion, the work of collective liberation, the work of this beloved community, a beloved community of which we are all a part, a place where we are welcomed, respected, valued, cherished, a place where we belong. Blessed be, and amen.
Amen.